Welcome back to the Late Start Show. I'm Nico Morelli.
And I'm Jay Miller, and we're your new hosts for the sports segment, sponsored by USPN.
Let's jump right into some hockey news. First off, congratulations to the senior Sam Robinson for making the preseason All-Stars first team. We'd also like to give honorable mentions to junior Patrick Corcoran and senior Gavin Jones for their stellar performances.
This past weekend, the varsity hockey team traveled to Bowling Green for the Jamie Ruffner Memorial Tournament. They kicked things off with a dominant 10-2 victory over Finland, with senior Gavin Jones lighting up the scoreboard with an impressive 4 goals.
In their second game, they faced Villanova, but unfortunately, the Preppers fell 3-1 after Villanova scored an empty netter with just 45 seconds left in the game.
In their third game, though, they rebounded in a big way, shutting out Bowling Green 6-0 with junior Finn Bryans scoring 2 goals.
That set them up for a rematch against Villanova in the championship. Early in the game, junior Patrick Corcoran scored, and with a 25-save performance by Hayden Howerson, the Preppers secured their second consecutive victory at the Memorial Tournament.
Now, on to JV hockey. They had a tough loss against St. Ignatius on Friday, falling 3-1, but they bounced back with a strong 4-1 win against their rivals from up the street on Sunday.
Moving on to the varsity swim and dive team. They faced off against Lake Catholic on Tuesday for their first meet of the year. And as of this recording, we don't know the final results, but we'll keep you posted next week.
And while we're talking about swimming, a quick shout out to senior Alex Pesic in the 200 freestyle, senior Quinn McPhail in the 500 freestyle, and junior Finn Conludi in the 100 backstroke, and sophomore Jake McPhail with the honorable mention for their outstanding performances.
Now shifting gears a bit, last Wednesday, the Piano Society held their annual fall recital, showcase performances from Rafi Silverman, class of 28, Nikki DeTiro, class of 25, Ethan Kemp, class of 27, Michael Nursasov, class of 26, Michael Zhang, class of 27, Arnstrul Sharma, class of 26, and Rasa Tin, class of 26. Great job to all the performers.
Also, the Cruikshank House clothing draft has officially concluded, and we're excited to announce the impressive donations that came in. We've got 400 pairs of male socks, 40 hats, 18 blankets, 26 pairs of female winter socks, 21 pairs of gloves, and 10 sets of gloves and hats.
Big thanks to everyone who contributed to that effort. It's amazing to see the prepper community come together for such a great cause.
And finally, Mr. Passov's meteorology class took a trip to the Cleveland branch of the National Weather Service, followed by a visit to the WEWS News 5. After touring the station, each student got the chance to present a full weather forecast in front of the green screen, which was graded by Channel 5 meteorologists Sean McGill and Katie McGraw.
What a fun and educational experience for the class.
And that's all from this week. Coming up next, Jack and Charlie sit down with fifth grade social studies teacher, Mr. Marcia, talk about his incredible journey as a teacher.
We hope you have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next week.
Good morning and welcome back to the show. We are here with legendary fifth grade social studies teacher, Mr. Marcia. How are you, Mr. Marcia?
I'm wonderful, thanks. I actually just got in from cleaning up from the last storm that hit the neighborhood. And so my son came in last night, and so we together had a little bonding experience with the chainsaw, cutting some trees up and helping some neighbors out, and picking up right where we left off before he left.
That's super, super cool. I know we would ask, Mr. Marcia, you're currently in your 27th year at the school. What was your journey like kind of just to US, and when did you know that US is really just the place for you?
Wow, I mean, the journey began long ago. It's a in terms of my teaching journey, that started with outdoor education upon graduating from college from Wittenberg University, and I was offered a job teaching outdoor ed with inner city kids from Cincinnati coming in, and I hadn't really spent much time with children. I didn't major in education. I was thinking about getting into law or even theology, and anyways, I took this job and it was one of the most difficult things I had done. And so when my contract expired with the outdoor education, I began a short stint at a boarding school in New Hampshire, which then led to eventually my first teaching job was at Hathaway Brown in 1991. And that was a year-long stint. And from there, I went to teaching the fourth grade in a self-contained room at the Sayre School, Lexington, Kentucky. And still single at this time, I realized I could also find a teaching job teaching by the beach. And so I went to St. Edward's School in Vero Beach, Florida, for a couple years. And it was really during that time where I had met my wife back here in Ohio at a wedding. And so I contacted US and Hawken and interviewed and received an offer from both back in 97. And university school is definitely more in line with my objectives. And so that's what led to where I am now, the 27th year.
Wow, I mean, that's really, really cool just knowing your journey. Because I mean, I was only gifted 1 year, like, really getting to know you, and I know that was cut short with COVID, but knowing, like, I really know you've had such a big impact on so many kids before and after.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Marcia, so you've also had a job as an educational consultant for the Cleveland Museum of Art. So what did that job consist of and how did you get that position?
That was along with Mr. Storinsky, who was at that time, I had taught with Mr. Starr, and we shared a homeroom together earlier on in my career at the Shaker campus when he was teaching art there. And then he left and he was working on an Arts 21 project with the museum. And he selected a couple teachers from the area whose I think values and integrated education aligned with the art museum in terms of teachers who enjoyed using art in their classroom. And he felt that these teachers could develop a program that would allow students and well, families to better access pieces in the museum according to their likings, which I think really led to the current system where when you go into the museum, you can literally touch on a certain color or shape when you go in and refine your sense of, shall we say, beauty, and it will direct you to a certain piece or time frame. And so you don't just walk into the museum and be completely overwhelmed. So that was the work with Mr. Starr and a few other teachers, select teachers from independent schools. A great opportunity.
Yeah, sounded very interesting.
That sounds really, really cool. You know, Mr. Marcia, kind of going back to like my time in fifth grade with you, one of the quotes I really remembered from you was organization and preparation are the keys to success. You know, I remember back in fifth grade, you shared a story about where that saying originated and the significance of the mug with that phrase on it. For listeners who might not be familiar with this story, could you kind of share its background and explain how it has influenced so many people, including me?
Well, I can say that really, you know, half the battle of teaching, uh, well, for children going through school, especially in a middle school, is having those skills of being organized and prepared. And so it's a simple mantra, but it goes a long way. My most recent one is to remain stable, and I think the kids have picked up on that too, which really has to do with self control. But organization and preparation, really applying that to every facet of life, um, you know, can help you. Um, I often, you know, would have kids write about, you know, how organization and preparation can benefit their lives at home and in school. And so just really that self-reflective piece, you know, can be beneficial.
And Mr. Marcia, do you have any other lessons that you try to instill in your younger students to prepare them for when they're older?
Other than organization and preparation and remaining stable,
Yep.
that would be the groundwork, you know, for anything that would take place then. But yeah, I mean, For me, teaching has really been an opportunity to help students find beauty and to not only have to help kids find the beauty in themselves, but to create beautiful things and give them those opportunities to create and share part of themselves, and in the process, develop who they are.
How has watching your son's journey kind of through US shaped your perspective on the impact of like US on every single kid?
I'm sorry, my own sons.
Yes.
Yeah. What a great opportunity and blessing that has been to go to school with, bring my kids to school every day during their education. Being a father has been quite the learning experience in itself. Um, my own father, who is somewhat of a renowned psychologist, um, really pursued academia more than family. And so I spent my summers with him in Vancouver, British Columbia, mountain climbing and between that being in the city and the mountains. Um, but it wasn't until I got married until I really started to value family and stability and the loyalty that comes along with that. And so uh, I never really knew what it was like to have a stable father figure around, but I, having been very conscientious of that, have made my best efforts with my own boys, to do the best I can in terms of letting them grow, but at the same time, providing advice, that I can and always being there for them. So, um, having boys, um, and also teaching in an all boys school, has been very compatible, because I know what it's like to live with boys and to raise them, and coming to school and working with boys from other families has been that much better.
I think from my experience, US in a lot of ways reflects a family where you have that tight knit community. From your experiences, do you feel that way where US has kind of reflected a family for you?
Um, Absolutely. I mean, the values of US and the support that US provides to teachers and to students are really those core values of the family between responsibility, loyalty, and consideration. um, it's also a fine balance between, when you think about teaching, life as a teacher and life as a father, um, you want to provide opportunities for growth and for them to uh, recognize the beauty within themselves and um, to really always think of the other person as well and to be shall we say um, kind, being kind to others.
You know, Watching kind of the experience with your son going from like with your sons going from the lower school also into the upper school, watching that experience, do you think that the lower school has really reflected some of those same values held at the upper school?
um Absolutely. You know, I I think the kids are, you know, products of their past, and so they take with them the things that they've learned along the way. I mean, even though we may be the same people in some ways that we were very young, I think gathering those experiences together and being products of our families and the communities in which we live, um, that I believe is a seamless transition from the lower school to the upper school in terms of character and expectations. Um, and even though people grow in their identities, I think they hold on to things that they learned along the way in terms of character development. Academically, I think having two campuses has always been somewhat of a challenge. For us in certain fields and certain departments, but we've always worked to bridge that gap, with having more meetings and so on. Um, but our intentions are all are all the same. The and the rigor is real at every level.
One aspect of the lower school that's kind of stayed in the lower school that I've always found fascinating is the theme system. And I mean, some of the most memorable themes, like ancient Greece and the American Revolution, have really like just left a lasting impression on students. Even up to the upper school, we still talk about how do you embrace the theme system, and how do you think help? How do you think it helps teach kids about these significant moments in history?
Well, first of all, I've always thought of teaching at US as somewhat of a teacher's utopia, and um, the theme study program that we had in the lower school was an opportunity for teachers to express their passions, and which very much transcends into enthusiasm and becomes a catalyst for learning for kids when they see the teachers excited about what they're doing. And the autonomy as a teacher to develop planning, and then giving your students equally that kind of time and space to create within a theme to their likings. And that is really a perfect recipe for education. And if you can find something that is appetizing intellectually, for them, which many of the themes are, then they will eat it and digest it, and continue to grow with it. So in many ways, the theme studies are ideal for an educator and for a student. I think recently there's been somewhat of a push for more grading and accountability, and sometimes that's possible. And there's always been in the field of education this kind of give and take between something canned and accountable and uh, shall we say gradable with data, versus letting someone kind of grow and learn and trusting that they're going to be putting their effort into it and really doing much more reading and writing than one could measure. I could go on about that for some time, but we can go on.
Part of one of those themes of the Greek god theme is where all the fifth graders dress up
Mhm.
as a Greek god, and that's definitely a sight to see. So I have two parts to this question. One, how did that kind of become a thing? And then number two, what's your favorite costume that you've seen?
Well, the school, in terms of ancient Greece, well, I had done a unit long ago at another school on ancient Greece, and when I came to US, I discovered that they had also had something in place with ancient Greece. So for me, it was a natural transition, moving right into that. And I always try to connect the values of US to the Athenian values that the ancient Greeks believed in terms of virtues, and anything from knowing thyself to the belief in democracy and education, and certainly art, and that all just jive so perfectly well um, into my endeavors as a teacher. That is allowing kids to be creative and promoting them to create beauty artistically and intellectually. And it's very Athenian. In fact, when you look at the statue of the US boy, that in itself, represents an Athenian boy. You have a statue of someone in a contrapposto relaxed stage. He is very simply clothed. He has a lamp in his hand representing knowledge. He has a hammer in the other hand representing hard work. So he's very modest. He's humble. He's not too big and buff. He's healthy, and he's an adolescent, and so he very much looks like an Athenian boy, and the symbolic. And there's also a scroll there, for writing and so on. So the values are really completely involved there from the Athenians in the U.S. boy in that statue at the Shaker campus. And so with those values, I also, we often talk about simplicity in architecture and the balance between form and function, between mind and body, that the Greeks aspired to. But there was a second part of your question. What was it?
It was, what's your favorite costume that you've seen throughout all your
Oh,
years?
wow, the favorite costume. You know, they just blow me away every year. Between the posters that they create of the Greek god that they're researching, and the way some of them go one step further in terms of their own creativity in designing their costumes. Some have looked larger than life. I recall one year there was a centaur and of Chiron, and I think part of it was store bought, but just the fact that he was coming as a half man, half horse, that was pretty entertaining. But most of the best costumes are the imaginative homemade ones where they have taken sandals and glued feathers on the side, for Hermes, and or taken a bike helmet and put some wings, on the helmet, or really gone to great lengths to sew and create a vest or breastplate in that way, with perhaps an Athena with a Medusa, in the middle. And then, of course, there's all of the Poseidons and so on. So they really, it's really an amazing experience on Greek Gods Day, which happens to coincide with Halloween, each year.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Percy Jackson, so I find all those things very interesting.
Hmm.
One of the things that I've also found kind of cool is the cooperation between all the different teachers with each theme. So you can kind of see in every art class, we'll work on that theme. In every science class, we talk about some of the things that go into um, each theme. Where has that cooperation really led you? I know, especially, I remember your class vividly making different things like art wise, just kind of representing this like ancient Greek culture. How has that cooperation between the different teachers and classes really moved that idea of just themes and the whole system?
Well, as I started talking about earlier, when you're talking about the trajectory of my teaching career, when I ended up finishing college, I actually went to graduate school at a school called Antioch, New England, which is in Keene, New Hampshire, and they were really pioneers in integrated day and theme-based education, which again just fit perfectly with what I wanted to do in terms of incorporating different subject matters, into a theme. And so that kind of collaboration between subjects really is a quite natural one. In fact, I'm sure that all the best teachers over time have often tried to bring in other subjects, into the intention of what they're teaching. And particularly at US, I've just been it's been very fortunate to work with teachers who have an open mind, enough to see how their disciplines, can fit into let's say, a social studies theme or a cultural theme. And it really does bring a great amount of collaboration, and it just builds, it just fosters that creativity. Whereas I think in a public school, you really are confined to a set of expectations from the state that way. And so, but when you're working in an integrated situation and you have that flexibility, it's very empowering as a teacher, and it really promotes the collaboration between disciplines. Tying that in with math sometimes can be challenging, but I know that we've managed to do that as well as with science and English. Certainly, that's a natural association between the English and the social studies.
One of the things that I think will be really interesting asking you during is the fact that you taught our grade during the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. How do you think that impacted the way you taught us? And how do you think that just impacted education as a whole going forward?
Oh, wow. That was really tough. I mean, for me, technologically, the thought of doing this, on Zoom, and being live in someone's, house that way. And at the beginning, we weren't even going to do that. We recorded our lessons and then we, played them, in hopes that someone would, listen to them and follow them. And then when Zoom came around, we all became, stars on the screen and did what we could, from home. That was extremely challenging as a teacher, and not having all of the, not being able to communicate with kids, in the classroom, and have the supplies and things like that. I mean, it was just such a major shift. It was extremely challenging, but we made it through. Was there another part to that question? I can't remember.
I mean, how do you just really think that's impacted education even now? Like, have you seen yourself
I I honestly have lost track of it, I mean, it feels like, the days of, mask wearing and so on have, just so dissipated, and I don't know, what do you think? I mean, do you think it affected you
I
in
think
a particular way?
I think technology has become a huge part of everything we do. I still remember actually your class in fifth grade where we first got our computers and everything, where
Mm,
we started to use technology more than we'd ever used in the grades before us.
mhm,
But yeah, I mean, still at that time, had everything, our homework on paper. We were doing mostly everything on paper versus now, at least in the high school, unless it's just something the high school does, I can see us using technology for a lot more of our everyday.
mhm. I think kids in college were, more prepared for that because, you know, going to school, K through 12 is such a social experience as well as college, but, just lecturing from a podium in college, is possible, but, being a teacher and being confined to a screen is, you know, it's not the same as being in person, and having that relationship.
Mr. Marcia, this is shifting a little bit. So you've been a fifth grade teacher. I know you mentioned you taught fourth grade
Mm.
before. Have you ever felt a desire to teach an older grade, or do you feel like you found your spot?
I have just I've been doing this for so long and I'm really have to be honest with you. I don't like change for change's sake and I do like refinement. And I believe that you can continue doing what you do and refine what you do and move with the times, whether it's technologically or, value shifts in education. And I'm so used to working with this age level that um part of me has become that, in a way, you almost uh, move to the age that you're dealing with, oftentimes. I have, I've thought about uh different age levels and I haven't entertained it a whole lot. I just haven't had, too many opportunities, given to me. So and I have not pursued it. So, you know, I'm happy being, where I am.
Jack and I constantly ask ourselves, what is our purpose for doing everything that we do, and why do we find like kind of a way to fit everything that we kind of want to do in our schedule? What makes you so motivated to impact so many students' lives daily?
Well, you hit the ground running as soon as you step on to the campus, and that's why I always get there an hour early. So you do it to them before they do it to you. Organization and preparation are the keys to success. You have a schedule, you have a plan, and sometimes that works, and sometimes you have to modify it due to any one of the variables, that you're working with, especially the kid factor. The kid factor, you could have the best plans, but you never really know because there's lots of emotions there and lots of things can happen throughout the day. But the more prepared you are, the more successful, your experience will be. And so you give it everything you have when you go in, you set the table and you write your schedule on the board and you step onto the stage and then you move throughout the day, one step at a time. And hopefully, you can make an impact on a kid, every day and at least one, and you know, help them, you know, become beautiful.
How do you define impact? Like you talked about having an impact on a kid. For you, how can you may look yourself in the mirror and say, I impacted that kid, I did my job?
Oh, the awards come in many different, ways. I mean, I always say to my sons, learn to you know, recognize what you've done and award yourself, because the world won't always, give you awards, and be your own award, or and reward yourself. And um, you can have these feelings, or shall I say epiphanies, when something has gone really well, and you can say, you know what, I had a really good plan, and I know they really enjoyed the experience and produced very good work. And sometimes, in the face of working with adolescents, it can be quite muddy. But there are other times when they're producing beautiful things, and you've done the right thing. It doesn't happen every day, but you have to recognize it, when it does happen. And as Emerson would say, be open to beauty, and when beauty strikes, that way. So I think that kids are, willing to learn, and they want to do their best naturally. And so kids at different levels can feel success in different ways, um, whether it's, through organization, or through the mastery of something, or, when they're inspired, they tend to create.
Well, Mr. Marcia, to wrap this up, it's been an amazing interview. And through my 3 years at US, I've already learned countless life lessons that have stuck with me and will stick with me for the rest of my life. And you having so much more time at this school, what is one lesson that will stick with you once you retire and leave this school?
Know that I would say, given it your best, you know, and it's difficult to quantify um, success. It's a feeling that you know of accomplishment, knowing that you've done what you could, with what you had, and you've been honest with yourself, in doing so. And you've allowed people to also promoted them to become themselves as well, and help them, with their identities.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Marcia, for such a great interview and so many valuable insights into just your story, career, and everything about US. Also, thank you so much for being our first online interview and our first lower school interview. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us next Wednesday for another episode of Late Start Show. Thank you, Mr. Marcia.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Jack.
Yep. Thank
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.